Well, let's take advantage that everyone's back here and let's welcome back you guys. I hope you had a great and relaxing time taking old friends and meeting a new ones. We will now welcome Beth Rosen, who will recite some beautiful poems for our enjoyment. Beth will be followed by Glaucio Pessoa, who will talk to us about two wonderful Spiritist initiatives. Stay tuned. Beth and Glaucio, please. Welcome.
What are you gonna? You're gonna. Ah. Well, I have a book. The origin they are written in Portuguese, but I have the translation in English. I'm going to interpret in English. I'm better interpreting Portuguese, but because there are people here that they don't understand Portuguese, né? So I'm gonna. We talk a lot about God. So I'm gonna say a poem about God for you. And after one about peace, but it's not the. If you want, I can say in Portuguese, after in English, or just in English. You choose. I don't know because I have a bilingual here. Let me see here. I wasn't prepared to be called. I didn't say. I have to look for. Here. The God. The mystery of all times. God is still a mystery. The human being cannot understand such definition. God is inside our hearts, in the birds that sing, in the waves of the sea, in the dark of day, in the wish of love. God is in the mouth of everyone. Oh my God, thank God. Many don't believe in God, but in hard times, God helps. Then comes attachment to God. Then faith deepens and we never say goodbye to God again. We were born with this feeling of a great power. We always search for a spiritual essential connection in this material life. Many search for God in different ways, but some find out they don't need to search so much because God is inside, outside, by our side, all over. God is observing, helping, inspiring artists, giving faith to those who need it. God does not abandon those who suffer. God shows that everything is temporary, everything is growing, and everything evolves. God is still a mystery for human beings, but thank God He is in control of everything. He can protect us if you make an effort to deserve it. Mystery or not, it's important to love God, then we can feel loved by Him. And this superior power will illuminate every step, every moment of our temporary lives on the planet Earth. Now this book is divided in 5 chapters, né? And by different things. There is one that is about faith, about human feelings, and about this God. I'm gonna say one because in honor of Divaldo Franco, because he was the ambassador of the peace. I have one about peace. Né? If I find here now, because I don't know, I wasn't prepared for the. Let me see. Paz, né? Peace. Pacify, my brother. Establish peace on earth for the good of humanity. Pacify, my brother. Don't destroy yourself for so little. Love your neighbor. It's so easy. Just try. Pacify, my brother. Don't wish for more than you can give and realize. Got to understand that people are not the same. There are differences of feeling, of thoughts, and taste. Just try to understand. I am me, you are you. We can only unite through mutual respect. Pacify, my brother. Don't allow yourself to be corrupted. Be faithful in what you feel. Pacify, my brother, because that's the only way to preserve something from what has been nearly destroyed, life. Thank you for the opportunity.
Good afternoon, everybody. This was very nice. Thank you, Betty. When we think that we can pacify, right, we have a chance to build instead of destroying and do our part. Speaking of which, speaking of pacifying, there are two important initiatives that we have here in Atlanta. The first one is Fraternity on the Street. Now, everybody has heard of Fraternity Without Borders, which provide aid to different countries, different communities. And within Fraternity Without Borders, there is a project that they created, which is called Fraternity on the Streets. And basically, it is a way to create additional work fronts that they had, again, not only so much in some foreign countries, but especially on the streets to help the homeless, to help those in need. There are different chapters in this New York, Las Vegas, Denver, Boston, 4 chapters in Brazil as well, Campo Grande, Uberlândia, São Paulo, and Rio de Janeiro. And since last year, there's a chapter here with us. We have our own chapter here of Fraternity on the streets, on the street. And the beauty of it is that everybody, there's a big concern in big cities, metropolitan areas such as Atlanta, on how, on homelessness. And this is our chance to make a difference. So once a month is the second Saturday. So this is actually, I'm presenting, but this is actually a sales pitch, to be honest. So every second of the month, we get together and we deliver 100 meals and over 60 kits of toiletries. Of course, we always want to expand. And if you want to learn more, there's a QR code right here. Feel free to scan it. I'm going to give you a few moments. Or if you can talk to our friends, Marcelo Medeiros, Sergio Santos, who can talk to me as well. I love this quote, famous quote from Steve Jobs that says, "We're here to put a dent in the universe. Otherwise, why else even be here?" So we all have a chance to make a change. It is none of us individually can solve the issues with some social issues such as homelessness. But again, if you deliver one of those 100 meals or more, hopefully more, to someone, that's a chance for someone to have another day, another chance to move forward. So again, we invite everybody to participate with us. So that's the first initiative. The second initiative is the Good News Channel. And the Good News Channel, the idea behind it, again, is to promote Spiritism through social media. This is our, in English, yes, thank you very much, in English. This is our tag here, Good News Channel on YouTube. So again, those are short videos. And a lot of times we have friends that we want to introduce Spiritism, introduce ideas. And so this is a chance to just go ahead and share. First of all, make sure you visit our channel. Here, those volunteers that work on it, put a lot of love. Make sure you visit, like, please always help to like, to help promote, share, and of course, subscribe. We're always open to ideas. And also, if you want to volunteer with us in different capacities, if you're someone who's artistically inclined or who wants to host, come talk to us as well. We always welcome additional help. And speaking of help, a very big thank you here from Fraternity on the Street. And of course, another one of our projects here, which is called Spiritist Radio, which offers programs online as an online radio in English and Portuguese. So just by being here today and tomorrow, part of the proceedings are going to help fund these two initiatives. So just by being here, sitting here, you are already contributing to those two projects here in Atlanta. So thank you very much.
So now we're going to start our Q&A session,
Yep.
and let's invite Peter and Marcia. Let's organize and put some.
And just, let's give them like a microphone, and they're going to be here in front of our audience. I don't know if I'm going to start with the easier ones or the tough ones. There we go. That's a good way. That's a good way to start.
3, 2, 1. Yeah, you're all saying as well. Cheese. And now more. Thank you, guys.
Well, I think just easier just to set up the question, and then you can give your perspective about it. Well, let's start I'll get a tough one, and let's see if we have enough time. Well, that's one of the question is, it's easier to say that the poor person is going through suffering. But how about the rich ones, the physical, beautiful ones, the ones with power and influence? It's easy to say that they're not going through the suffering?
No.
No? Yeah, let's see. I can use that.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So earlier today, we talked about the fictional story of Isabel, who was exactly that, right? So, and later on, we talked about the analogy of the mirror, where the group here discuss about that earthly view in the mirror and why it's much harder to see across our lifetimes. And what we're talking about it is really the fact that we have one life, but many different corporeal existence. But as we come through reincarnation to this life, we are given the blessings of forgetting our past. And let's pretend we're now, all of us, part of the billionaire club. And all of a sudden, spiritual gains and spiritual back that provide us so many inklings to reflect, transform, to learn becomes fuzzy, and it's so easy. So to answer your question, the trial and expiation of reincarnation that is easy, that is full of wealth, power, beauty, whatever, I would say is one that requires so much more, because it requires us to look beyond what is in front of you, much, much more beyond that.
Hi. I think one thing Spiritism says about this is that the trial of poverty and wealth are just different. One is not necessarily easier than the other per se. Poverty tends to be more about patience and resignation. Wealth tends to be more about resisting the temptations that might come with wealth. Presumably, if you can do a lot more because you have greater purchasing power, the temptation to be self-indulgent might be much greater. So it requires discipline in that sense. By discipline, I don't mean rigidity. I mean that one has a vision of what one can do with these resources that are available. We're held accountable for the things that we do as well as what we don't do. And when it comes to wealth, if one is overly attached to the trappings of wealth, then that can actually create more consequences or give us greater debts later on. So I would say the following. Wealth is a huge test. And those who are in positions of extreme power are really under a test. And when they're under a test like that, the question is, what are they going to do with these options that they have?
May I add something, not to compliment, just something that came to my mind, which is very dear to me. The parable of the talents comes to my mind, where in this case, Jesus tells us that a master gives 3 quantities of talents, money, and the one who's given the most actually produces the most. And this is such an amazing parable because it really puts us to question, how much am I giving? And I'm going beyond the question, which was wealth. Let's think about of knowledge that we have. Let's think about of our talent in our sense of the word. Am I a poet, a writer? Am I a speaker? Am I an influencer? Am I someone who is charismatic? Whatever it is, let us look at those talents very carefully because we are accountable for what we do with them.
The one with the least talents who hid the talent away, it's a metaphor for not taking risks. You could call it laziness. That's another way to interpret it. But the one who has more is able to do more with it, not because he has more, because he has the resources and the wherewithal to try to put it to use. And that's why Jesus said that even the little that one has, even that will be taken away if they don't do anything with it.
Thank you both. I'm going to share a question here, and maybe we can start with Marcia as well. It's still connected with the topic. It's probably a very common question for those like first in the early stages of Spiritism. So some people may think that the believers or the followers of the Spiritism doctrine in this multiple life reincarnation, it may imply that you can improve or delay your improving process or delay or control your transformation journey because you have multiple lives. So you can procrastinate and decide not in this life, but enjoy in the later life. So how do you explain that this is not actually the case? How do you reflect on that and help someone understand like incarnation and opportunity to be here?
Yeah, so I think it is the case actually, right? Free will. You can stop and you can delay, you can procrastinate. And this is a long time ago because I was fascinated. I swam when I was a kid and I was fascinated by Michael Phelps. So I used to talk about him at the time when he spent his whole life training to those little seconds that he's swimming. And at some point he comes and he does the first before the last one of the Olympics. And after that, he went into full depression. And he came out with this new challenge. Let's go ahead and do 8 golden medals. You never get to do it. Now, he could say, no, right? No. I'm going to go back into my depression. I'm going to do whatever I want. Or, yes, I'm going to take on this challenge. The question is, he spent 3 years working like a crazy man. If you read his biography, he had to build muscles that he did not have to be able to go through a full range of different swimming competitions. And he did. He got all his 8 medals. He became part of history. But the question then becomes, to answer your question, what if he decided, not this Olympics, I'll do the following. Age, the lack of preparation, the lack of motivation, all a series of circumstances could be there that would have prevented him from being successful. So in Spiritism, we talk about this as the law of progress. In free will, you have the free will to decide how fast or not to grow. But the issue is it gets harder, right? It gets harder. The longer you procrastinate, the harder it will be for you to get to where you need to be. If I go back to the other analogy, the GPS, free will, I don't want to take the shortest route. I'm going to just try and go around. First, it's going to take longer, but in some cases, you may run out of gas, and now you have to deal with a whole slew of problems. So for you who have submitted this question, it's a question of respecting the beautiful gift, which is your freedom to choose. Respect your beautiful gift of knowledge, understanding that we really don't have much time, right? And I don't know if Peter wants to talk a little bit about the transition that we're going through in terms of the becoming a world of regeneration. And to me, that's the biggest rush that we have, is to look at ourselves and reflect upon our ability to truly transform and be able to keep growing with Earth.
Part of what Margie's getting at about the world of regeneration is that Earth is evolving and is improving. Humanity is improving over time. And as humanity collectively continues to improve, that also means that as spirits come back, they have to be at a certain spiritual level to come here in the future. If they're not, they would go to a less evolved planet somewhere else, a less evolved place of existence. I think a question to ask is, okay, yes, we have our free will, as Marcia said. We can be the biggest couch potato on the planet if we want to. There's really nothing stopping us. But at what point do we begin to find that really dissatisfying? At what point does it make us unhappy? We may enjoy it for a while, but imagine if you could just spend every day of your life in a nice 5-star resort, just sitting on the beach, doing nothing. A lot of people would find that incredibly boring. For a while, some people might be motivated to do that, but there is that self-motivating drive that I think we have after a certain point of time has elapsed. And also, if we look back and realize I squandered time a lot, that can be really hard to live with. Do any of you know David Cassidy from the Partridge Family, if you grew up with that? Well, he died a few years ago. And he apparently, the last thing he said was, so much time wasted. You know, even somebody who had success like that, but for whatever reason, apparently, he felt like he could have done more. And that feeling is very nagging to us. The Spirit's book says that God's laws are written on the conscience. So part of what that means is that the willingness we have within us to realize I could be doing more is already within us. It's a question of when and how does it get activated. Will it get activated after we have used our free will to slack off and do whatever? And then at some point we just go, there's got to be more. Deepak Chopra said that one thing that can make us very unhappy and even shorten our lives is when we feel like we don't have a purpose. So having a purpose for most of us at some point is going to be essential, not just a good idea, but crucial.
If I can add just one thing for this friend of ours that shared this question, because I think that it relates so much to me. Yes, Spiritism is about reveals to us the multiple life and our eternal life. You don't have control when you're going to be in the next train. This is your chance. And in this incarnation, so many people in the spiritual world signed off a check to say, he is ready to go back. Your spiritual guide was beside you to say, this is your time. And André Luiz, in most of his books, just share with us like how many souls, friend of ours, go back to the spiritual life with the feel of being corrupt. I failed. It's not to imply the guilt, but just to forget that, yes, we are eternal spirits in a human experience, but we don't know when the next train is going to back to us. We're going to have the chance to join the next train to Earth. So this is not in our control.
Yeah, I think it's good that you mentioned André Luiz, because he brings the idea of reincarnatory, I guess is in English, reincarnatory planning. Is that the right term? Sorry. But anyways, the planning that takes place before you as a spirit reincarnates, and it takes planning, but also it takes willingness for the parents to receive you as a spirit. It takes the conjunction of all the elements to be there at the right time for you to be able to address maybe and repair some wrongdoings or some bridges to hurt that you caused. And that is a really interesting point, back to your original question, because it is really, you have the best. Today, it is the best that we have. Truly, it is the best. We have everything that we need already available. So when we, with our free will, we decide to, what is that? I kind of like that, the 5-star resort.
That sounds good, right?
But kidding aside, if we delay that, we may not have that well-orchestrated circumstances anymore, which means it's going to be much more difficult for us to address the issues that we committed to ourselves to do it.
Yeah, well, we have free will, but what's up to us? What we've been learning here is there are consequences. You got to understand that to be incarnated here, it's a lot of energy. A lot of people has to put a lot of energy to get work for you, and then taking care of you. And every single day, an animal or someone has to work for you. The guys that take trash on the streets, the guys that take care of electrical power, and the guys that take care of water, and all of those people around the world are working for you to be alive at this moment in this planet. If you don't want to get that, it's like when you take a loan from the bank. If you don't want to pay, that's fine. But remember, there's a consequences. You got to understand and take that responsibility. Well, as we are moving forward here, one more question. Maybe this is more for Marcia, but if Pete, you have that answer, that will help us. Is the Spiritism one of the religions included in the 30% of Christian, or Spiritism has its own category on the 4,000 religions?
Yeah, it's considered as one of the 4,000 plus religions, but from a demographics, right? The statistics from 2022 really speaks of Christianity, not Spiritism, as one of the main categories. We do know, and this is probably dated, that in Brazil, Spiritism was, what, 3% of the population? It is a lot, but is it, right? If we talk about perhaps, let's say, Atlanta, with millions of people, how many of those millions of people just in Atlanta are considered themselves Spiritist? So it's a very small fraction, but we don't have to worry about that, right? We really don't.
I believe there's a study done by the Pew Research that said apparently around 25% of people, I don't know if it was in the world or in this country alone, believe in reincarnation. So it's global, right? It's a global. So that's a sizable number.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And of course, Spiritism embraces Christianity, and a large portion of the population around the planet is Christian. But also at the end of the day, Spiritism is not asking anybody to replace an existing religion with it. You can combine Spiritism with whatever your background is. Because it's, again, a religion, philosophy, and science, and all three parts are equal because knowledge comes to us in different ways.
Yeah, unlike many other religions, Spiritism does not in any point, and if you see differently, talk to me, call me. But Spiritism does not require anyone to convert anyone else, or even, as Peter alluded, let go of your own religious practices, right? So that's, to me, one of the most beautiful aspects of Spiritism. And as we heard before, when asked if Spiritism would be the religion of the future, the answer was that it will not. It will be the future of religion.
Thank you, Marcia. Well, we have another question here. It might sound simple, but I think there's a lot of hidden complexities here. So why is that two people under the same circumstances might feel different levels of happiness? And this is for both of you.
Let's be happy. Let's talk about happiness. Joanna DeAngelis, come here with us. Go ahead.
Happiness.
If I may rephrase what I think the question is asking, suppose you have two people who are experiencing a similar experience, but their reaction is wildly different. There we go. Okay. Well, I think that says volumes about the level, the spiritual level that two people are at the moment. So if Marcia and I are going through the same event and she's fine and peaceful and I'm freaking out and panicking, it's more a reflection of how I'm processing what's going on. And Marcia has found perhaps better ways to cope with whatever it is that may be occurring. So in mentioning before that Earth is a planet of trials and expiations, we have people with a variety of levels. Some people are at a lower level, some people are more advanced. When I say lower, upper level, I'm just talking about spiritual progress. Doesn't mean that someone's better than somebody else. It just means that with people at different spiritual levels, it means they have different ways of coping with what goes on. So let's say we have a natural disaster somewhere, people's homes are wiped out. Well, the person over here may be handling it okay. I'll find a new home, I'll move on. These things happen, it's inconvenient, I'm kind of in shock, but I'll be all right. And the person next to them is devastated. My life is over, my home, this was everything to me, how am I going to continue, etc. They both had the same experience, but their outlook on life is different. And of course, the person who is devastated and feels like their life is over, they have the capacity to see things differently as they continue.
And I mentioned Joanna DeAngelis because, we talked about not so long ago about her book, Whole Life, right? And in her work, Joanna DeAngelis also has a little book that has become a favorite one, and not within the psychological series, but Happy Life. And then we have Plenitude. And I bring Plenitude because we just, in the center that I work, we just finished the book, studying the book. And Plenitude is that, right? That full life. She uses that term a lot, the wholeness. And I think that's closest to a sense of happiness, to go back to your question. But what is so interesting about the book, and I invite all of you to read it, is 2/3 of the book is about suffering. But it's wonderful because it really, it breaks down in so many different levels, and it ends with death. And Joanna, if you look into the index, right, Joanna, what are you trying to say? But it's really that the path toward fulfillment is one that does not mean no suffering, as we discussed today, right? And it really means that we need, as spirits that have the conscience built within us, we also have a sense of looking and achieving and trying and failing and trying some more. And the only thing that comes to my mind as an analogy would be a child, right? The child that first needs to crawl, and the first steps are, whoa, right, wobbly, and the child falls and it gets up, and that's the drive to learn to walk does not mean that the child really knows that one day he or she will be able to not only walk, but run, dance, and whatever poetry exists with human movement. But within a year-old child, there is that seed of, I will try. And I think that's the seed, and Joanna talks a lot about it, is within all of us. So happiness is an attribute that may mean different things, right, Peter, depending on potentially your psychological maturity, your spiritual maturity, but also depends on how far are we going with that urge to, quote unquote, walk.
I like one quote that says that we don't see the world the way that the world is. We see the world the way that we are, because we put our lens, you know. And the nicest thing that's happening nowadays, those quotes are arising from the quantum physics, because now in science they are figuring that out. It depends what you're looking for is the result that you're gonna get.
So how we perceive is relative to who we are.
Yeah. Well, one more question here. If suffering isn't a punishment and we suffer due to our imperfections, how do you explain that good people and animals also suffer?
Let me try. This is a good question. Whoever put it there, right? Because in that we are put in judgment of not only the why, the reason for suffering, but also that the suffering is bad, right? And really important for us to think this is not an apology of suffering. Remember, historically speaking, especially within Christianity, we can see a lot of self-inflicted suffering as this is what's going to bring me closest to God. It's not what we're trying to say here. We're saying that suffering is a consequence, right? Not a punishment for our actions. But what consequence, and if I don't know, tell me more. And the best way to explain that is a consequence of not following the laws, natural laws. That's all. So it's really not a judgment of you as a immortal spirit, as a person, whatever religion you are, but it is a commentary to, even though the laws are inscribed in your conscience, mean it doesn't matter what you believe, it's right there in your heart. When you go against them, there will be consequences that may cause suffering. And the good news is for whatever reason, we remember first the pains and the suffering, and later we remember our joy and smiles. It is, I don't know why, but that's what we do. So what I mean by that is the shock of pain caused by transgression of a law will bring us closest to course correction. I don't know, you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just thinking, sometimes if we go through an act of suffering, it could be tempting to assume that maybe we deserved it in some way. This is some kind of consequence, but not necessarily. Maybe we are the victim of somebody who used their free will to harm us. If that's the case, then that situation is an opportunity for us to learn how to forgive, how to let go, for instance. It doesn't mean we deserved it. There is, again, free will, so sometimes people will just do things. So I think we have to be careful to assume that all things that happen to us are automatically a consequence. What they can be is a lesson. So again, if I truly didn't do anything to deserve somebody harming me, for instance, next question is, well, am I willing to forgive that person? How do I process that? That can, in itself, help and have merit to it, depending upon.
Can I add something? Because you mentioned, in happiness or suffering, two people side by side with the same, everything similar may suffer differently, right? And I think it's quite interesting when we start to delve in, and I'm a student of Joanna DeAngelis, when we start to delve into the spiritual psychology and the ideas of a lot of suffering is born of the egoic constructs that is created in this personality, meaning my ego belongs only to Marcia Trajano, not to the immortal spirit. It's constructed for this life. And when that egoic construct is not in balance with the self, which is the immortal soul, then we start to suffer, and we start to suffer a lot because the vision of the ego is material based only, not spiritual. So there is that wrinkle that we could talk. It's something that fascinates me, right? That spiritual psychology, and I invite all of you to delve into more of that because it really helps us understand. And she talks about Jesus, she talks about Kardec, but she brings teachings from a psychological perspective that really helps us better understand where we are today.
I guess that the last question that I had from the audience was already answered in other ways, but I can share also. I would love to hear from you both. Still a little bit more expanding on the topics that you were saying, like in the topic of today. Many people come to or are presented to Spiritism, we used to say like many times, either through love or through pain. So Spiritism sometimes can come to their life in a moment of really despair with real life trauma events. And that's basically how I and surrounding people that I know that came. So what message, if we flip a little bit, because I think that in the Spiritism, we tend also to always rationalize everything. And in this moment, how do you transform this message in a compassionate way to talk about hope in divine justice?
I think you're right on. You already answered your question or your reflection here, which is we agree that God is our creator, God is our father, and we all agree that the attributes of God is just, as a just being, but also a loving, good being. And as our father, the immense sense of mercy and love is everywhere. So your reflection upon the pain that is driving a lot of the people to look for answers in Spiritism, I would say it is really born or satisfied or addressed by the consoling nature of the message. As we know, we see Jesus as the promised the consoler, right? The Redeemer, but the consoler is a Spiritism. Spiritism in its best expression is one that will embrace you in the moments of questions, of pain, of sorrow, whatever it is, the landscape of emotional response to your life today. And I think it is one truly beautiful aspect of Spiritism, is to be able to speak and not be judged, right? To open your soul, open your mind, your questions, and be embraced with the love that a loving Father has for all of us, no matter what.
I was just thinking, this is the case with our center in Newark. I'm sure, I would imagine it's the same here. Often when people come to us, it's because they're in trouble. That sound familiar?
Yeah.
Because they're looking for answers. And so, it's one of the reasons why centers are often described as being like hospitals. Not in the literal medical sense. It's quite irresponsible for us to say, oh, no, you don't need to see a doctor, just come to us, we'll take care of you. Absolutely not. We always say, seek professional medical help. But what we can do is that if people are trying to find answers to things in their lives that are troubling them, we can try to, present what Spiritism has to say. And, it may speak to them. Sometimes it does. Then again, since we all have our free will, it may not speak to that person too. So they may choose to do something else. But sometimes, I guess it's a consolation that I've had people sometimes say, I've gone here, and there, and didn't find the answer, but I do feel like I have something here.
Yeah, and that speaks of the non-dogmatic nature of Spiritism,
Right.
and that's why at first Kardec described Spiritism as it is not a religion, and later on he talks about it is a religion in its triple aspect: religion, science, and philosophy, but a religion without the dogma, without the rituals, without the hierarchies. But I think it's super important for us to also, as a non-dogmatic religion and a religion that is, or a philosophy that is made of questions,
About to
right?
say, yeah.
The more questions you have, the more questions and answers you receive. And from that perspective, we start to get some of the answers that is troubling us. And before I give it to you, I want to say, Guilherme alluded to that, right? When he said about this lens. And when we start to look at life beyond one corporeal existence, when we are able to, through teachings and learnings and reflection, to understand that enormity of this immortal life that we all live, then we start to transpose and transcend and understand and ultimately be consoled.
Spiritism is very much a reasoned faith. In other words, question everything. I think I was talking to Alan about this before. It invites one to be skeptical if they choose to be. In other words, skeptical in the sense that, you want to understand why such and such is such and such, so to speak. So that's perfectly valid to question. And that actually is what makes it engaging and enjoyable, is to be able to really ask, how do I know God exists? How do I, again, if it's relative to who I am as an individual, then part of finding that answer is I have to find it through my own search and my own effort. The other thing that Marcia touched on that I think is very important is that we, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. It'll come.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, let's take
Sorry.
advantage and say, I love, what I most love about the spiritualism is this open answer, because we know that as we evolved, as we improve, we are more aware about it. It's always open, because the answer will never change. The question will never change, but the answers, as we evolved, we are getting better and better. Well, and saying that, you got it?
I rebooted. I got
Perfect.
it. Well, Marcia was talking about immortality of the soul, and I was trying to touch on that in the part 2 presentation. If we believe in God and we believe we have an immortal spirit, we experience life very, very differently, because it's that idea that no matter how big what I'm going through now is, no matter how overwhelming it might be, if the totality of our journey is like this, what we're going through right now is just a tiny little pinprick. It's very tiny. And so that doesn't mean, to go back to a previous question, we should be lazy and go, I'll just deal with this in the future. But rather to see that everything that's happening to us now is just one little moment. It's big at the moment, but it's only this moment, and it too shall pass. Common expression in Judaism. This too will pass. So it's easier to internalize that when we believe that our journey is much longer than one life.
That's great. Well, Marcia, Peter, we cannot thank you enough here. Again, thank you very much to help us. And what a way to top off the first day of our event. Well, now, what did you think of our conference? Please, now you can take your phones and read the QR code here. And please take the questionnaire. We value your opinion and we thank you for your feedback, which will help us to get better every year. Can you just read and answer your questionnaire? Everybody's done already?
2 minutes for.
2 minutes?
Yeah, 2
Just to
minutes
read
for
and go to the questionnaire there?
I'm also not.
And that is a question about lunch. Doesn't apply to today, obviously, because we didn't have lunch. So let's just skip that one.
No.
It is mandatory, yes. It is mandatory. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, round of applause. Thank you.
I know, that's true, that's true. Yeah, think about lunch as a snack. That's a good point. Yes. It's mandatory. We didn't eat, that's right. Do you have your glasses today, Charles?
No.
Make it bigger. Okay.
Back in the church, the master sermon again.
You know what does that mean, right? They're gonna. Well, everyone done?
Done?
Well, at this time, let's thank Jesus for allowing the realization of the another Spiritist Conference of Georgia. It is time for our closing prayer. We invite Charles to join us and say the final prayer. Please.
Well, thank you all. Glad to be here with you all. Enjoyed it. I'd like to also thank Jesus, God, all the good spirits for helping us out here today. They blessed us with a safe trip here. They blessed us with a great event. They blessed us with smiling faces and friends. And I like that. I know all of you like. And I also thank God for not letting me stumble on the way up here. So, all right, let's close our eyes, lift our spirits, think of God, think of Jesus, think of all the good spirits that have joined us here today. And I like to pray to God that He bless us with the safe trips home, bless us with happy thoughts and big smiles when we think of the conference today. I pray that God bless each and every one of you to spread the knowledge and messages you've learned today to your families, to your friends, to your neighbors, to your pets. Let them in on it too. They'll understand. I pray that God brings us Jesus' message through Jesus, through the spirits, through our hearts, through our minds, through our souls, and let us venture forward with our heads held high, knowing that we're going to give it the best we got. I also want to thank God for all of the things that He's done for us in the past, in the current conditions, and in the future, and letting us know that we're eventually going to make it. It may take a little while for each of us. We have our own path, our own free will, but we will get there. We will get to know God much better. I'd like to thank God for my parents, which my father will be 90 years old the end of this month on Memorial Day. And I thank God every day for this. I tell my parents, I thank them for them and being my parents, hosting the spirit that they developed along the way and giving me my personality of today. And I encourage all of you to thank your parents. If they're still with you, if they're not, thank them. They'll hear it. I'd like to ask God for one big favor, that He can keep the smiles that everyone had today on their faces going forward and help everyone around them smile as well. Amen.
Thank you, Charles. Once again, thanks to all the speakers, volunteers, and for all of you, the audience, in person and online, and for the great questions as well. This is written here, but I really mean with all my heart. This was such a great day, and there is more tomorrow. So we'll be back here tomorrow for day 2 of the event. Tomorrow we have Marcelo Neto and Eulalia Bueno, who will provide us more great talks. Tomorrow the event will be in Portuguese with simultaneous translation in English available. So I hope that you see all you back tomorrow at 10 a.m. God bless all of you. Thanks again for your beautiful pray. So see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.